Welcome to the second episode ever of Dialogue with Designers. In this episode, we have Michael Janda, who's an expert freelancer. We cover topics like how to scale a freelancing business, how to get clients organically, and also how to grow from zero. So if you're new here or if you're an expert at freelancing, hopefully there's something in here for everyone. And I'll make sure to leave all the chapters down below, just so you guys can skip around and find exactly what you need from this. Now, without further ado, let's jump right into the interview and let's talk to Michael Janda.
All right.
Okay, man. Good.
Thank you so much for doing this, Michael. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, super fun. I love doing these things.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. So you're really well known on Instagram and other social medias just for being, I'd say, a god amongst men for the freelancing world. How did you get started in the freelancing world? And just before we get started on any questions, how would you like to, I guess, introduce yourself to the audience and to everyone that doesn't really know you that well?
Okay, so I'll introduce myself first. I'm an agency veteran is kind of how I dub myself. I bounced around some jobs before I started freelancing and built my agency, which culminated my early jobs, starting production designer and building up, culminated into becoming a creative director at Fox Studios in Los Angeles, where I worked for a few years before I launched out and started freelancing back in 2002. And then my freelance became successful. I started hiring people and it started to grow into an agency, which I built to an agency of 20 people and sold my agency in 2015. So I had a 13-year agency run. And then I worked for the agency I sold to for a couple years.
Really? How did that work?
It was good. It was during my buyout. So in a buyout, you usually have money at close and then money that distributes over time. So they don't want you to, they don't want to buy your company and then have the owner bail and leave them hanging without value. So it was about 2.5 years that I spent with them helping to integrate my clients and processes and things into their agency. And we had a good run and made some great friends and had a great team there. But after my buyout was finished, I was ready. I was done with the agency life and ready to go into what I really found my passion to be, which was became a creative director. And as I grew my agency, I found that I really loved the mentoring, training, helping designers or creatives go from level 1 to level 8. I loved that process. And so that led me to some speaking engagements and writing a couple books and things. And now just wanting to share what I have learned through the trenches of this industry to help creative freelancers, creative entrepreneurs succeed without as much pain as what I had in my process. Mine was like a lot of trial and error trying to experiment.
So what was this agency mainly about? What was the main piece of work here?
We did a lot of digital work, and our biggest client was Disney over our 13-year run. Google and Warner Brothers and NBC and ABC and Fox and National Geographic. I mean, we just had a great list of clients. And it all kind of came out of my relationships when I was working at Fox. That was the foundation. So I had Hollywood relationships. My first 3 clients were all big name clients, Sony, Disney, and Warner Brothers.
That's great, right? Just a huge launch off, right?
Yeah, exactly. And once you're doing work for those kinds of companies, it's easy to get work from all the rest of them because you can say, hey, well, here's a portfolio full of work we did for Disney. And then Google's going to say, okay, well, if Disney trusts them, I'll trust them. And so we parlayed all of that kind of work into landing new clients and building the agency. Yeah.
Well, that kind of leads off into our next question here, which is you obviously had that platform to launch yourself into these big names and Disney and Fox and all these people. Yeah. How would you suggest that a beginner goes from 0 or 1, which is, I guess, your mentoring process, right? Yeah. How would you recommend that they go from 0 to having Disney as a client or Fox or whoever it is?
There are 2 ways to get into big clients like that. And one of them is the way that most designers should do it, or most creatives. So the 2 ways, you can either have relationships with people at those businesses, and then those relationships get the doors open for you. or you can build a reputation that makes them want to come after you. That they hear about you, and you're this well-known designer, well-known agency, and they heard about you in awards and write-ups and creative industry stuff. Your name is cycling around, and you start landing clients that way. For most people, relationships is the way to go, because building a reputation like that takes a lot of time. And a lot of times it takes a lot of money as well. I mean, submitting for awards, the big name awards, you've got to have clout to start winning those things. And so anyway, those are the two ways.
What's your experience in that anyways, just applying to award shows? How often do you do that?
We did it a lot at my agency. I had a list of awards that I wanted to win. You know, we won a Webby, we won FWA awards, we won all awards. You know, anytime there was an award that I kind of coveted, I would start watching my project load. And when there was a project that was like, oh, this is the one that we can use to win our FWA, and you jump on it. And
so you say, really
okay,
went after
we're going after this. We know that this is the project, the stars aligned, the client's right, the budget's right, the project type is right. Now, all we have to do is execute on this at a high level, and it's going to win for those types of things. So that was the process for award stuff. And it does start building your reputation for sure. I mean, we landed some reputation-based. We landed some reputation-based projects out of winning awards and getting that publicity out of it. But going back to the question, how do you get into Disney when you're just starting out and you're somewhere, anywhere in the world? Man, for most people, it's the relationship strategy. You've got to, number one, you got to do work that is of the quality that they would want. So you can't be doing low end work and expect to somehow land Disney. It's not going to happen. So you got to get the quality up to their standard. And then once your craft is perfected to that level, then it's all about building relationships. And it's never been easier. I mean, social media makes it so that if you want to connect with every creative director that works inside of Disney's umbrella organization, well, you can probably find half of them on LinkedIn. So connect with them and start interacting with their content there. Start commenting on their posts. Start, building awareness of you.
Look at us, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you, and then
so many people have done that with me through Instagram. I mean, I reply to every DM. I know the people who comment on every post that I post. The ones who comment, the ones who take time to comment something smart, they stand out to me. And all of a sudden I start paying attention to them. And then I see, oh, hey, Shauna is in here again. Oh, hey, Jordan's in here again. And most of those people, I end up following them back. We end up starting to DM once in a while. They build touch points and relationship with me over time. And for all those people, they're one level removed from my whole contact list of people in Hollywood, man. I mean, I have so many old clients and things. And so all those people who are connected to me, if I have somebody who reaches out to me from Fox, for example, and says, hey, I really need a designer who is good at XYZ. Do you know anybody? Well, my list of people are the people that I know. It's the relationships that I have. So I have been a source for work for a number of different people inside of my Instagram community, just because I've grown to trust them. And when somebody asks me for a certain expertise, I refer people into them. And so a lot of people have gotten work through their relationship with me. And I love being that connector person for that. But that's how it's done. I mean, in any business, it's not just to the Hollywood, Disney types of things. It's any kind of business in the creative industry. It's so much based on trust. I trust you, you trust me. That reciprocal trust means that I'm going to trust my designer friend to give them to you, or you're going to trust a client to refer them to me. that trust
Right.
has to be built over time. Now, while I'm on this ramble on this, you can't expect it to happen in like two DMs. It doesn't happen in that time frame. You got to build a relationship over time the way you do with anybody. You're not going to be able to DM a creative director at Disney one DM and expect them to give you work. It's never going to happen. Never. But if you build a mutually beneficial relationship with that person over time, then that trust builds, and then opportunities start to become the byproduct of that.
So what does that relationship look like, right? When it's mutually beneficial and you really have nothing to give but the value of free work, I guess, because what else are they going to need from you if they have Disney at their fingertips?
Well,
what does that look like?
I've had a blessed career and made plenty of money and had every client, and I kind of checked every box that I dreamed of checking. But what can somebody give me of value? Man, their support and admiration and uplift and things that people give me in my Instagram community, it's so valuable to me. So when I get a DM from somebody that says, "Oh, Mike, I am really loving your reels that you're posting nowadays. It's so good. Thank you. Keep going." Man,
they're great, by the way. They're really great.
Thank you. They're fun. They're fun to make. But when people DM me that, it's so valuable to me. So they can give me that, whether they're a junior designer or not even a designer at all. I have a bunch of friends in my community that aren't even designers, and their support has value to me. So I'm sitting here giving value, freelance advice. Okay, here's how you do this. Here's how you do that. And it's valuable to their career. But when they give me that support and that motivation and uplift, that has tons of value to me. And then, some people do offer free work and things. And I don't often take advantage of that. A lot of times I'll be like, "Hey, I'm happy for you to do this, but I'm going to pay you." Or, "Yeah, let's give it a try." If it's something that I wouldn't pay money for and they just want to prove their ability, I'll say, "Okay, fine. Yeah, you can go and do SEO on that YouTube video and see how it performs. Show me that you can perform better than what I'm doing already." I'll let people do that once in a while. So there is that kind of scratching each other's back component that happens. Yeah.
So you have this huge social media presence now. How do you think that's helped you in any clients that you have now, or any design work or any production work? Because now your Instagram is only freelance and it's freelance advice, things like that. But has that helped you in the other side of things, in the other business, or not at all?
I don't do other business. I don't.
You don't?
No,
all you
I
do
don't,
now is freelance?
No,
100%?
no client work. No client work. I did one project for a buddy of mine. He's one of my best friends, and he got a bunch of seed money, few $1 million of seed money for his business last fall. And he hired me to do the UX UI for his website. And, if it wasn't him, I would have said no. I don't do client work. So it hasn't helped from that standpoint. I do get people who ask me if I know people, like I said, but so it hasn't, so I don't have another side of my business. My business is create content, and most of my content is free. And then I have some paid content like my books and courses and things. And people enroll in those as a byproduct of me just providing valuable content in my free feeds.
Yeah. So I haven't purchased your course, right? But this is one thing that I'm wondering that you do teach in your course. What do you think is more valuable when approaching a new client? Obviously, if you want to build that relationship, do you think cold calling is better, cold email? What type of cold approach do you think is the best here, if any at all?
Yeah. So cold is like, if you don't have anything else going, then use cold sales processes. My preference is you attack hot. There's hot, warm, and cold opportunities. So hot opportunities are repeat clients and super trusting close relationships. So you have a buddy from university who's now a creative director at some business, and he reaches out to you and says, hey, I want you to do some work for our agency. I'm a creative director. I'm the decision maker. I just need some support. I know your talent will do it. Man, that's hot because you have the relationship with him already. All you have to do is get a price that's going to work for their business, and you're going to get the work. You don't have to prove anything. So we attack hot sales opportunities first. And if you're out of hot sales opportunities, then you go to warm sales opportunities. Warm sales opportunities are things like asking happy clients for referrals, asking past clients for repeat business opportunities. So you reach out to a client you haven't heard from in a year, but you did work for them a year ago, and then this relationship's gone stale. You reach out and you say, hey, I've got a little bit of time freed up in the next couple of months, wondering if there's anything that you need. I loved working with you last year on this project. So you're reaching out to people who have already bought from you in the past, which is why the transaction becomes so much easier. Or you're asking those people for referrals. Hey, we just came off this project, loved working with you. If you know anybody else that might need services like what we just did for you, I'd love a referral. So you're getting into these warm opportunities. Now, if we don't have any warm opportunities, then we go to cold. And cold sales goes everywhere from just showing up at networking events to sending out cold emails on LinkedIn to posting content on social media. You're just reaching out to all these cold people that have never bought from you before, and in a lot of cases, never heard of you before. The best approach to that is still relationship driven. It's getting your face in front of other people, because ultimately there are so many designers out there, and you're a good designer, but I can find 1 million other good designers that can design just as well as you or me. I mean, I can find a million others that can design better than me and you. Now, why would somebody ever buy from you or me if there are other better designers out there? Well, it's because they're not you or me. If that person trusts you and me, then they'll buy from me over somebody that they don't know or trust, who maybe even can do a better job, but they have no trust with that person or no relationship. So if you're going to do cold sales efforts, number one, I'd say, is get your face in front of other people. So go to networking events where businesses come together, and don't be afraid to go and start shaking hands and meeting people and telling them what you do, and they tell you what they do, and you're just looking for ways to connect what you do with what other people need. You can still do that in social media as well. You can do it through groups. If your niche is tech startups, then go find a LinkedIn group that is all about tech startups, and go and start interacting with the people and the content there to build connections and relationships. That is a much more effective way to do cold sales than just, finding 50 clients, potential clients on LinkedIn, and sending them a cold DM out of the blue. They've never heard of you, and you saying, hey, you need a new website? Because I can design a website for you. And I still get that stuff now. I mean, I it's like every day I got stuff in my LinkedIn of just somebody coming out of the blue, cold sales, trying to sell me something. And it's so ineffective.
I get that as well.
Yeah.
And I find it hilarious because
it is hilarious. It's like, and you're sitting there saying, man, look at my profile. If I wanted a website, I'd build it myself. I don't need to, I don't need somebody to do that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Anyway.
So I guess this is kind of moving on from the whole cold calling and cold emailing side of things, but I guess this is a bit more personal, which is, what is one of the biggest mistakes you think you had when you started out freelancing, and how did that help you move on and better yourself later on?
My biggest mistake in the early years was that I didn't hire early enough. I thought that I had to have way more money than I actually did saved up before I started hiring people. I was nervous that people weren't going to be able to replicate my quality level. I was nervous of taking on somebody else's overhead. Oh no, now I hired somebody for $40,000 a year, and now I have to bring in an extra $40,000 to be able to pay them for the next year. And it kept me from hiring for like 2 years, where I was putting in the 80-hour weeks, freelancing 24/7, and just stressed out. I was making a ton of money and saving a ton of money, but I didn't need the ton of money that I saved up to be able to start hiring. So I waited a little too long, probably by like a year and a half, too long before I started hiring people. So that was a big mistake. Once I pulled the thread and started hiring people, I mean, I went from 1 employee to 5 in the first year that I hired people. And then we just started growing from there. Once I saw the light where, oh, it's not as scary as I thought it was going to be. And no, I don't need $120,000 in the bank before I hire a $40,000 employee. That's not how this works. You don't need that much. 3 to 6 months of overhead coverage is the number. So if you look at it and say, I want to make 5,000 and I'm going to hire a $60,000 a year employee, then I'm going to pay them 5,000. So I need $10,000 a month, and I have $30,000 in working projects and $20,000 in my business bank accounts. All right, I can hire somebody. That's $50,000 worth of operating expenses in my working projects and my money in the bank. I can hire somebody and then expect that 5 months from now, I'll still have plenty of work to cover me and cover that person. And so that's the right approach. I did the wrong approach of waiting too long.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. I guess, how do you get yourself to kind of loosen up and let yourself hire other people, right? Because I think it's very easy to say, okay, once I hit this number, I'll start hiring other people, right? But then how do you actually tell yourself to start doing it, to start giving yourself more freedom?
Yeah. So there's a mental exercise to do to get there, because there are 2 inhibitions when somebody's ready to start hiring somebody else. Inhibition number 1 is, oh no, I can't afford them. And to get over that, you go 3 months out. You say, if I'm hiring somebody and they're going to cost $5,000, then I need $15,000 of capital to be able to hire that person. That's what I'm going to risk. And 3 months from now, if it's not working out, I'm out my 15 grand and I fire the person and move on. So that's the mindset you have. Look only 3 months out on your mental commitment to the experiment. If you can afford it for 3 months, then go for it. So that's inhibition number 1, is the financial side. Inhibition number 2 that prevents people from hiring is, wow, there's no way that this person's going to do the quality that I do. So, man, I don't want to hire somebody and then I have to babysit this person all day long. Well, get ready to hire, because if that person could do what you can do, they'd be hiring their own employees, not you hiring them.
That makes sense then.
Yeah. So the people who are ready to go and do it just like you, they're out there running their own stuff. What you're looking for is you 5 years ago, you 10 years ago, when you were starting out, somebody with ambition and potential. And then you're going to hire that person and they're going to work for you for 1 to 5 years. And then they're probably going to move on to something else, or maybe your business outgrows them. Something's going to happen in that span, usually. I did have a couple employees that stayed 10 plus years at my agency, but my agency was growing so much that they were able to grow within the walls of my agency, didn't need to go somewhere else. Anyway, take that mindset. Okay, I'm going to hire people who are junior to me, but I'm looking for somebody with potential. And when I give them work, my expectation is that they can do it to 80% of my ability. I'm never going to give a design to somebody, to some designer that I'm paying $4,000 a month to, and my value to the market is $10,000 a month. I'm not going to expect that person to produce $10,000 a month design work. I'm going to expect that person to produce $4,000 a month design work. And then I have to fill the gap of their maximum quality and what my expectation is. And that gap, you fill it through critique, through mentoring, through sometimes taking their file and saying, okay, this is great. You did an awesome job. I'm just going to take that file and I'm going to polish it up a little bit and then I'll send it to the client. Or I'm going to polish it up a little bit. I'll give it back to you and you send it to the client. There's that responsibility on you. It's kind of like you're hiring somebody and they spend 4 hours to save you 1. That's the mindset of looking at it. You say, I'm going to give this task to Sally, and I know Sally's going to take longer than I would, and she's not going to do the level of quality that I want to do. And so she's going to spend 4 hours. I could do it in 1 hour myself, but I know that I will never grow my business if I keep doing everything, all the tasks myself. I have to at some point let go of the reins and let some other people start to do pieces of this work.
Right. I guess that makes sense if you are kind of struggling a lot with the work that's coming in, right? You got so much work and you're spending so many hours. But let's talk a little bit about kind of the other side of things when you're starting out so small and you don't really have thousands of dollars of budget and hundreds of thousands even, and you can't hire out anyone, and all you care about is feeding yourself and feeding and paying for your little apartment, right? What are some tips that you'd give to freelancers starting out, I guess at minimum rates, right? Like doing a logo for like 50, $100. How do you recommend they start to increase to get to that level?
Okay, so the method that I recommend is pushing the price ceiling. So the way you push the price ceiling is you look at it and you say, okay, I successfully sold 4 logos at $50. Congrats to me. I'm not going to do any more logos at $50. Now all my logos are $75. I'm going to push up my price, and then I'm going to track, am I winning or losing logos at $75? So we successfully built demand at 50. Now we're going to try and build demand at 75. And once we are successful in pushing our price ceiling up to 75, we're going to say, you know what? I'm going to do a bigger jump this time. I'm going to start charging $125 for my logos. I'm going to do a bigger jump and see where clients start saying no to me. And when they start saying no, then you know you're starting to hit the price ceiling. You have 2 options. Number 1, you can improve your sales process, your salesmanship, so that you can sell somebody on a higher price, or you can go back down to the lower price that you were charging before. Now, okay, I can't get anybody to say yes at a $500 logo. I better go down to $350 again, where I sold my last 5 clients, because I know I'll get work at the $350 price range. And while I'm back down there, I'm going to work on improving my craft, improving my salesmanship, so that I can sell people on higher price logos in the future. But you don't know any of this if you're not tracking your win-loss. So every project opportunity you get, put it down in a spreadsheet and just track it. Here's the project. Here's the date I submitted it. Here's the budget I submitted. And did I win or lose this project? When you start tracking that, it'll become really clear that you're winning every $50 logo project you bid. Well, there's no resistance at $50. So you've got to find resistance in your price point.
You need resistance.
You need resistance. And if you're not getting some resistance from some clients, you're not charging enough. You're way too cheap. So you want resistance. You're looking for that resistance threshold when you're pricing work and pitching your services.
That's something I always talk about in my channel. And this is going to be one of the last questions here because we're running out of time. But what are your thoughts on platforms like Upwork and Fiverr, where there's so much competition?
Yeah.
And it's nearly impossible to start to bid logos for 5,000, 10,000, right? Yeah. So how do you kind of scale your business on platforms like Upwork and Fiverr?
Yeah,
if it's even possible.
I don't know that it's possible. And a Fiverr or Upwork expert might say, well, I did it. Well, yeah, and you got other people who bought a lottery ticket and won, but everybody else who bought lottery tickets lost. So be careful listening to the one person out of 4 million who made it work on a platform, and the other 3,999,999 didn't. That's more common what's going to happen. Now, I am a fan of Upwork and Fiverr for people who don't have any clients. It's if you go down and you say, okay, there's hot, warm, cold, and Upwork and Fiverr.
Sub-freezing.
Yeah, it's sub-freezing. Now, the benefit to it, and I do love the business of Upwork and Fiverr, because the benefit is that the clients who come there already know that they have a problem, and they know they're trying to find somebody to solve it. It takes a big problem out of the sales process, because usually in sales, you're trying to find somebody, identify a problem in their business, and then position yourself to solve that problem. Well, on Upwork and Fiverr, all the people who are looking for vendors there already know they have a problem in their business that they're ready to spend money to solve. So I like them as a business model, but because the problem is already identified and all they're looking for is the vendor to do it, you take out your ability to win the project on almost anything other than price. Low price is going to win on most of those types of engagements because it's not built on a relationship with you as a human. People spend more money.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, people spend more money to do it with you because of their relationship with you. I trust you. I'm going to spend more money to use you because I trust that you're going to do it. I'm not going to spend less with some dude on Fiverr who I've never met and hope for the best. Too much risk. So you can find some work on those channels, but do it after you've exhausted the other options of hot, warm, cold, and then you still got nothing and you're not getting any leads, and go and work Upwork and Fiverr and see what can happen. But hopefully at some point you graduate out of the Upwork and Fiverr projects and you move on to doing things the way that everybody else does them successfully at the higher price engagements. And that's largely through relationships, doing effective work for some clients. They refer you to other clients and you build your network of clients through referrals, which is the way that most creatives find success until they start building reputation. And reputation comes after you've been in business for a while and you start getting your name out there in enough places that businesses hear about you and say, oh, I'm going to hire that agency because I keep seeing them everywhere. They must be great. Yeah.
Well, I guess our time is up here. I really want to thank you for coming on the podcast. I learned a lot, and I hope that my audience learned something as well. So I just want to say thank you for coming on.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's super fun to chat and great questions. And thanks for listening to me ramble on with the answers.
If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure that you like and subscribe, and also comment what was a favorite topic that we talked about. I'll make sure to answer any questions or comments you guys have and also pass any off to Michael. Thank you guys so much for watching again, and I'll see you on the next one.